We also spoke about the noose. Remember the noose? Yes? Okay. So where's your noose now? Where is it? What is it showing?
Bacon.
Oh, you cannot say that, right? It's showing a lot of stuff, right? Yes? Yes? Well, guess what? The noose was active last night in your head as well, showing you certain dreams. Yes? So the noose. Let's talk about the noose for a moment, and it's very important. During prayer, right, our noose began to get distracted on various other things, right? On life, on work, on school, and all these different things. And one thing, if I could say, if I could ask this question to you, what do you think is one thing that the noose really, really hates? Can you tell me what it is? Being what?
Steady.
Being steady, being still. Yes, absolutely. But I'm looking for one particular thing that the noose really, yes, absolutely. Stillness, it hates. Calmness, it hates, yes. Focus, yes, absolutely. I'm looking for one particular word that starts with the letter D. Discipline. Yes, it hates discipline, okay? It doesn't like discipline. When the church says to stand in worship, it doesn't want to stand. It constantly says, go sit. Your legs are tired, even though they're not tired. You know, go sit, go sit. When you're prostrating, the noose would say, oh, your back hurts, don't do it. You know, why does orthodoxy have to be so complicated? So many rules, regulations. Stop, you're torturing me. Right? That's what the noose says. You're torturing me. Right? Well, guess what? Keep in mind, the noose keeps on showing different things over and over and over again because we fell away from stillness in God. Okay? Right? Now, this is not theoretical stuff that we were talking about. This is real life. Okay? So when people say that orthodoxy is not related to life, you don't understand orthodoxy. Orthodoxy, every aspect of our life, orthodoxy addresses. Okay, and I'll show you how. You might say, wait a minute, noose is something that the fathers sat around and spoke about. This organ that the noose is, we talk about it all the time. In the prayers, in the Psalms, in Scripture, we talk about it all the time, but we don't see it. So, the noose hates discipline, okay? See, you know, I work at a hospital. And, you know, when you walk in a hospital, there are rules and regulations. For example, there are some, when you go into an ICU unit, it says, you know, precaution, and you have to wear a gown. Sometimes you have to wear gloves. You have to wear a mask. So when you walk in, you have to, you know, make sure that you sanitize your hand. When you walk out, you sanitize your hand again. There's so many rules and regulations in the hospital. Now, if a patient says, you know what, this hospital has so many rules and regulations, I'm going to go to a different hospital. Would it make sense? In other words, why are there rules and regulations? Is it to control the lives of the people who come there in a very dictatorship type of way? Or is it for the benefit of those who work there and for the patients? Right? Same way do we understand the quote-unquote, the rules and regulations of the church. Okay? The church does not want to control your lives. In fact, I would argue, after studying orthodoxy, the most liberal and the most freedom that you can experience is in orthodoxy. If you feel that the church, you know, pulls you down and doesn't help you to reach your true potential, or you feel like a slave in the church, you don't understand the rules and regulations. You don't understand the spirit behind it. Because the church is supposed to liberate us. Remember? Hashtag make the climb. Yes? Hashtag make the climb. Yes, we can. Yes? The church allows you to be liberated from that prison. But in order to be liberated in the proper way, you have to follow certain disciplines. Does that make sense? Particularly the church knows the noose that acts up all the time, even when you don't like it, that's the thing that we first need to cure. All right? So I'm going to talk about that. And one person asked me, you know, can you talk about how to control the thoughts? You know, you spoke about how, you know, it's all over the place. How do you control it? We will talk about that. And there is a whole science behind it, and it begins with humility. It begins with humility. Okay? In order for a patient to receive proper treatment from the doctor, if the patient starts dictating to the doctor, saying, "Doctor, you know what you're talking about. I did my research," can the patient ever be well? The patient needs to have the humility to say, "Okay, I think the doctor knows what he is talking about or she is talking about. I need to humbly submit myself to the treatment that the patient or the doctor or the hospital is providing me with." Yes? Then only will the patient be able to cooperate with the doctor. For what purpose? For the benefit of the doctor? For the benefit of the patient. So first, we have to admit that we are patients. Okay? Including the ones who wear the black robe. We are also working on our salvation, trying to climb out that ladder to see God as light. Okay? Just like the doctors, they themselves take medications. They're not perfectly living in a healthy, normal life, right? Same as the doctors would need medicine, so same way the patients would need the medicine as well, and vice versa. So the question is, right now, in a fallen state, when I say the fallen state, I'm talking about cutting ourselves away from God. Okay? What happened? Our ancestors fell away from God. When they were in communion with God, guess what? The writer was in charge. Because the writer was getting directions from whom? From God. Yes? The eye of the soul was set on destination. His eyes, right? Just imagine, his eyes is the eye of the soul, okay? His eye was set on what? Theosis, becoming one with God, growing towards the likeness of God. But the very moment the soul got cut off from God, spiritual death, it ended up also causing physical death as well. Okay? So the fact that we all die, we say, "Oh, all humans die. It's a natural thing." No. Death is unnatural. It's not a normal thing. It's an abnormality. Human beings are not supposed to die. Death is a tragedy. Every time somebody dies, it's a reminder that our ancestors did something that they were not supposed to. Hence, we reverse our life. Okay? Who reversed what Eve did historically? We sing it in our prayers constantly over and over and over again. Saint Mary. Eve disobeyed. Mary obeyed. Eve, out of pride and pleasures, fell into sin. Out of humility, she obeyed and submitted to the will of God. Right? So she is the epitome of what our souls are supposed to do. The soul directing the body and not the other way around. Okay? So just to reiterate what we spoke about yesterday. Now, so what does cure from religion look like? Cure is simply being able to see God. If you could, again, Sunday school teachers, when you teach your children, who is a saint? What is a saint? Somebody asked me a beautiful question yesterday. The Catholic Church has saints. How are they different from the Orthodox saints? Right? Keep in mind, the Catholic Church has their own understanding of what a saint is. It's not the same definition of what the Orthodox saints are. Okay? Basically, what is a saint? A saint is a person who sees God. Okay? Very simple definition. A person who sees God. Okay? Now, what does that mean to see God? It doesn't mean that, oh, Jesus wearing sandals and the long robe walks around, he just, says, hey, buddy, how are you? Is that what seeing God is? No. That's not what seeing God is. In fact, if you ever see something like that, pray, Lord, I hope that this is not an apparition as a devil. Okay, because the saints have sometimes been tricked, saying that people showing up saying, I'm Jesus, but ended up being the devil. Okay? How did the saints see God? They see Him in two ways. Saints see Him as light. They experience Him as light. We read in Scripture, God is light. Yes? And it's not talking about this, oh, I see God. Oh, I see God. No. It's not a light that comes out of a bulb. God reveals Himself as light. We sing, what's one of the first songs that we sing when we begin the Qurbana? By thy light we see the light, Jesus, full of... That's the old translation, okay? This is the new translation. Sorry, Jacob. So that's the old translation. What is it saying? Right before Qurbana, what are you setting yourself up to see? We're setting ourselves up to see God. In the liturgy, we're called to see God. I went to Mount Athos recently in Greece. The monks there talk about seeing God as light as we would talk about sports. As we would talk about anything that's normal for us in our daily life. Okay? In other words, a saint is a person who has reached normalcy, as Father Romanides would say. When we think of a saint, we have certain people in our mind. Oh, saints, they're at a higher level of being. No. Father Romanides says saint is a person who has reached normalcy. He's a normal human being because they became God by seeing God. Okay? So don't think that being a saint is somewhere so far we could never reach, but hashtag make the climb, we are able to see God. Okay? So the cure is simply being able to see God. This is possible through the instrument of the nous. See, that nous I spoke to you about, it's a very, very important organ. There's some things that's shown there, you cannot even share to your children, to your spouse, to your closest loved one. See, that's where, and it's so important that you bring those things up to your spiritual father, spiritual mother. Because it is those things, you know, the thought or the image that's shown in the nous that, you know, that the devil would say, hey, don't you dare share those things to anyone. Remember that thought that comes to you? You should take this to the grave. It's that very thought that will be preventing you from experiencing salvation. Okay? So it's very important that these thoughts are shared and found a cure, so that the spiritual doctor is able to direct you and guide you towards releasing the nous from the head and attaching itself to the heart. Okay? Just one word about the heart. Where is your heart? Point to your heart. Is it functioning? We're breathing? Yes? Okay. The church fathers say this. Oh, even before that. Christ himself said this. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Okay? When he is talking about the heart, he's talking about the nous attached to the heart. When that is pure, Christ himself said, you will see me. Okay? See, that's what happened at Mount Tabor. For a moment, you know what God did? For Peter, James, and John, God illumined their nous for a moment and showed what they're supposed to become like. Okay? The true purpose of humanity is shown by Christ being glorified, showing his glory at Mount Tabor. So seeing God is participating in the very life in God. Okay? So the very moment we see the light, we are becoming one with the light. Just like the sunlight outside. Yes? As I mentioned before, the sun is coming out. I'm seeing the sun. At the same time, by seeing the sun, I'm actually participating in the sun. Make sense? That's exactly how God is in our life. And he shares his life with us through the sacraments, through the liturgy, through the prayers and such, through cultivating virtues and such. Okay? So, we went over this. So, somebody asked me before, this nous deal, do we talk about it in our prayers? What is that? Where is it coming from? Is Ebiachin making this stuff up? Matins of Kyemdo. Okay? This is right out of the Shimo. Okay? Right in that book. Enlighten, Lord God, our eyes by the blessed rays of your light. What is he talking about? Are we talking about the bodily eyes here? Enlighten my eyes, Lord. My eyes. He's talking about that? No. The church fathers knew about the nous, and they're saying, Lord, my nous is all over the place. And where is this prayer? Right after the Kauma. This is the first prefatory prayers that the Achin reads, saying that, listen, we're about to do prayers. Okay? Guess where my nous is right now? It's on sports. It's on food. It's on the kids. It's all over the place. Enlighten, Lord God, the eyes by the blessed rays of your light. Okay? 6th hour prayer of the Shema. I think from Hans. Enlighten, Lord, the eyes of our minds by the light of your glory. Right? Again, the same repetition that we see here. Look at this here from the Gospel of Matthew. Christ talking about the nous. Okay? It says here, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be. Again, he replaces, Christ is talking about the nous and the heart together. Okay? Where your treasure is, there your heart will be. It's the things that matters the most that shows up in the nous, doesn't it? Yes? Things that even if you don't like those things, your treasure is there. It just keeps on showing up over and over and over again. Yes? And then what does he say? This is Christ, the physician. The model, the archetype of humanity is saying this. The lamp of the body is the eye. Okay? Which body is he talking about? The spiritual body. Okay? If therefore your eye is good, your whole body will be full of light. So if the nous is purified, if the nous has remembrance of God constantly, your whole soul will experience what? Light. Again, replace light with God because God is light, right? But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in you is darkness, how great is that darkness? Okay? So, darkness, light. Let's go back to the prison example, right? We're trying to figure out, we're in that prison, we're living in darkness, we're trying to figure out how to make sense of this life. We talk about evil happening, we talk about social problems, pastoral problems, all these different things that are happening and we want answers. What is the answer? It begins with curing the nous, enlightening the souls of our heart. And people ask the question always, it bothers me when people ask, what does the Orthodox churches stand on, fill in the blank? What does the Orthodox churches stand on this? What does the Orthodox church stand on? As if there's a body of people, there's 5 or 6 people who decides these things, right? That's not the Orthodox church. The Orthodox church, seeing the light, experiencing God, understanding the human person, comes to certain conclusions, comes to a way of thinking, comes to a way of life. Based on that, do we understand all the problems around the world? Okay? So it's like this. How do you explain to your child who has never seen or never understood the planets, talking about how there are different types of gravity in different planets? Can you even talk about different gravity existing in different planets without even talking about their planets existing outside the world? You cannot. So that's where I say if we don't understand the fundamentals of the faith, we're not going to understand why the churches stand on certain things exist the way that it does. And it begins with curing the nous, experiencing God. Okay? So filling up the nous. Okay? What do you think that guy's doing over there? We all can relate. Daydreaming. How many of us daydream? Yes, daydreaming. The church fathers say daydreaming is basically, this is what you're doing. When you daydream, you're opening up your eyes, your ears, your mouth, your taste, everything, all your senses, opening up all the windows and saying, whoever wants to come in, come in. Oh, you want to come in? Come in, come in. Anyone else? Anyone else? That's what you do when you daydream. You're opening up all the windows and doors within your soul and allowing everything, whether it's good or bad, to enter in. Daydreaming is very, very dangerous. Okay? In other words, when the nous begins to scatter all over the place and shows a movie, you know how sometimes you just stare at the wall for hours, and all of a sudden it's only an hour passes away and you don't even realize that hour goes away. It puts you in a trance. Okay? It puts you in a trance. This also happens with Facebook. See, when we're checking Facebook, it's the same thing you've seen all over again. But you keep on looking at it. It's like, I can't stop. I can't stop. You're in a trance. my friend, you are in a trance. Okay? And the noose, with the help of the devil, puts us in a trance through technology. Because the devil knows that there's something called a noose, and as long as the noose is kept busy, we are basically in a trance. Okay? So taking charge of our life begins with taking charge of our noose. What's shown on that movie screen? By the way, I hope this is not going over your heads. Just reiterating some facts and going a little bit more deeper with what the noose is about. Okay? So this is a hermit from Mount Athos. This hermit is actually still alive. Speaking with Metropolitan Herotheos, when he was a priest, he visited Mount Athos. And the hermits in Mount Athos, they are, when I talk about why a hermit, why these monks, they are the specialists when it comes to asceticism. Okay, they are the specialists. You know those, for example, if you really want to find out about the latest research, you go to medical school. Who's teaching at medical school, right? Or who's teaching residents, right? Because why? Because they know the latest research. They spend their time and energy learning about the human body. Yes? Guess what? The ascetics, the monks of the church, which existed right from the beginning of the church, they are the experts when it comes to asceticism because they have dedicated their entire lives in working out salvation and guiding others. And when I went to Mount Athos, the pilgrims who come there, 95% of the pilgrims who come there, but the only men are allowed at Mount Athos. You know who they were? They were married men. They were married men. I took a ferry with Dirmeni and Alachin, and as we were going towards Mount Athos in that ferry, the guy who was sitting next to me was from the UK, from England. And I asked him, so what brings you here? And he looked at me and said, my wife brings me here, basically. My wife wants me to come here all the time. And I asked him, what does that mean? You know, why does your wife want you to come to Mount Athos of all places? She says that I'm more loving, more caring, and more forgiving the more I spend my time here at Mount Athos. Married men, right? Trying to figure out how to be more loving, caring, merciful, how to experience the love of God, how to see God from experts. Okay, we think Mount Athos or monasticism is for, those crazy people, right? And in another session about marriage and monasticism, I'll explain to you the fact that marriage and monasticism are two roads that lead to the same destination. Monastics are not a greater form of life where we have seats in heaven reserved for ourselves. Okay, it's two paths, parallel paths, leading to the same destination. And what leads us in that path is for both marriage and monastics are asceticism, working on our salvation. Okay? So, this is what he says. This hermit says this. All the events, all the impressions of the day and occupations of the mind go into the depths of the heart. Okay? See, this is where modern psychology and what hesychasm sometimes clash. Because modern psychology would say all your experiences are stored where? In your brain. Okay? A place called hippocampus, right? A small bulb-looking thing behind your brain. It stores all your memories and all these type of stuff. Yes, to a certain degree that is true. But more than that, it is within the core of our experiences, within our soul, all these are stored into what we nowadays call subconscious. So whenever the man is occupied during the day, the heart will be occupied with the same things at night. When the mind and the energies rest, and this can be seen clearly in our dreams. Can you dream about something that you've never seen or experienced before? No, it's just things that we have experienced that we probably even forget, that just keeps on coming in our dreams. Okay? So this is what this hermit said. So what does that mean? All impressions that comes through the senses, through our bodies, through sight, taste, touch, experiences, memories, all these things make an impression in our soul and comes back to haunt us. Okay? And all these things prevent us, okay, from experiencing God. So keep in mind, we may be asking ourselves, let's go back to the noose that's distracted. Why is it that we are more prone to do things that are, for example, You will sacrifice church or evening prayer, all those different things for sports, for birthday parties, for child soccer practice, and all these different other things. Why? Because you know the news is not going to be happy in church. It's not going to be exciting. It's not going to experience something great. But at the same time, you feel that you get something out of going to other things that excites the news. Okay? So you have to make a conscious effort. So how does this, what's the process? Purification of the heart, illumination of the news, and deification. These are the steps. I don't want to I don't want to mention this as a step-by-step process where, okay, once you're purified and then you're illumined and then you experience deification. It's not like that, okay? These are organic steps that allows us to experience God, even in purification of the heart. So I'm going to switch. These are things that I did not get to cover yesterday that will help us set up for our next topic that I want to share.